All right. Today we are going to build a guardrail or a guardrail system, which is a little bit more versatile, in which we can change out our connecting things and also change the end parts. This is probably the biggest upside of this method, that you can change the endpoint depending on what you did model. I only have 3 things currently. Okay, so something like this. And as usually, this looks way more complicated than it is because it's copy and paste for a few things. So let's get straight to it. The first thing is we are going to make our mesh, our guidelines. So, for example, something like this, where our guideline, which will be our curve, or in that case, it's not a curve purposely because we can just use the points of our track that we created. And then I will pull this one up and add a geometry node system. Just G. Let's turn on screencast. And I click on new and call this guardrail or guardrails. Now the first thing is I want to convert this to a curve, but I do not want this to be sharp. I want this to be smooth. So I will add a subdivision modifier. Subdivision surface modifier to be, or operation in that case. And I will just probably 2 is the best. Or to get the control over it, let's make this an input and call this sub D level. Because you will get more points, which means more vertices. That's why I like to have control over it. Default will be 2, minimum 0, maximum 6. That's great. And then we do the same steps as with the road. We want a curve. So mesh to curve, mesh to curve. So we convert this curve, this mesh to a curve. Then we want to set the normals. So the C up part, set curve normal. Just the same things we used a few times already. And then we want to resample the curve. Which actually we do not need this one right there. I just use evaluated. Okay, we do need this. We do need this. I will use evaluated. What does it do? I will show you once we have our profile. So let's add the curve to mesh, and add our profile. So we do not have our profile. So for this, we want to take a look at guardrail. Go to pictures. Let's take this one, for example. It's not completely sharp. We just want to follow this and we need the size of this. You can simply Google it. Or in my case, I am pretty sure that this is 30. One of these is 35 centimeters. So I will add a plane 0.35 meters and scale it to 0, merge it together. And just build this with beveling. Also bevel this one. Then I could actually finish this up, level this one. Something like this. Not completely the style I had before, or that we just saw, but it's still somewhat of a guardrail. Now I need to convert this to a curve. Call this profile guardrail. And if I simply drag this in here, make it relative, and put this in as our curve, we have this guardrail here. Now the position is currently not correct. To fix this, we use a set position node and pull this up. That's not up. Y is up. And it's turned around. Does this mean it's red? Yes. So let's go back in here to our curve, set the pivot point to 3D cursor and scale it along the x-axis by -1. And now it's the correct way. Because now it's blue. So the faces are facing the correct side. So if we are at the set position now, I don't know why, but this is 0.7 high, 0.7 meters. And now we need our, now we would need our poles. So one thing to watch out here, as we can see, less points, it's a little bit bumpy. If we would have more of these, it's sharper. And what evaluated does is, the sharper the turn, the length is pretty self-explanatory, just the distance between, which is okay, but for guardrail I like to use evaluated because between the points where should use more geometry it does, and on straight parts it's just a lot more distance between each vertices. Okay, now we do need the points. The poles, which is a little bit more different than just using curve to mesh and a profile, because this one sadly does not work. But we can build our poles. So the probably most simple pole would be something like this. Hold up. And then insert. And we move it right there. Add a bevel modifier that we can shade it smooth. I do not want these. Something like this. And now we want to distribute them along our curve. Which means we can simply use all of this. So let's call 1. And let's make this a new collection. Call this poles. Put this pole in here. And I will drop the collection in here. Now we do have our curve to mesh, mesh to curve, sorry, set curve normal, resample curve. So we will take this point and pull it down here. I think and we will add points, curve to points, which means we do have evaluated. We should have on each point a curve, a point on each vertex that is evaluated 1 point. And if we use instances on points and connect them, I don't know why it's not. Let's make this relatively and use instances. Connect this directly. Oh. At the end, we need a join geometry. So, does it work? It does work. Great. Okay, so a few things that we can see. The position is inside, or we can see it from this side. To fix this, firstly we can delete all of them, all inside here. Go to top view and move this all the way to here. Now, we can control this with the length, which I will connect in here, length poles or distance poles. Now we need to fix one thing. We go into top view, we can see the pole is always looking to the right. So always facing right there, and it should be facing on the back of our guardrail. To do this, we need to theoretically take 1 point, let's take 3 points, and calculate where it's facing, so we can tell it in what angle to place our pole. So, and that's always from 3 points. So 1, 2, 3 would be here, 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 and that's how you always get the middle point. So that's how you calculate it. Now, I'm not a math teacher. I'm more a math teacher. What a good joke. We do have tangent in here, rotation, and to be fair, that's all we need. That's why we use curve to points. We could just put these in. It would still work. But as you can see, a little bit different. It would just take each point in here. We could resample it and we would have the same effect. But with curve to points, we do have the option with the tangent and the rotation. And there's one great thing in here, and that is the align rotation to vector. There's also an align Euler to vector, which is the old utility and the new one works as said. We use our our rotation as the rotation and connect it in here. And let's see what that happen. It does kind of work. So there's one thing that is currently off, and that is we take the curve from this point. And now this one does work. We can change the, get a bit closer, we can change the distance to what we need. And now we just need to change, let's make a second pole. You can make as many as you like. So if we make a second one, also add a cube again. Quite similar from the height. And let's insert this. I will scale this along right there. Just as before, I will bevel it. And I will delete these vertices. I'll also pull this one right here. And now we need to, what's it called? Depict the instance here. Currently, it should be, oh, sorry. Oh, it just takes every second because there are two instances in here, but we want to change the index. So if we put the index as an input, change minimum to 0. Let's change this to an integer, so it's just 0 and 1. Default will be 1. Minimum is 0 and maximum is the number. Yeah, how many poles you have in here. So let's say 10, probably enough. In that case, I just have 2, so I can just make 2. Change the naming to distance poles, no index poles. Today it's slow. It's slow. So we can change this. Now there's one thing left. Well, actually there are two things left. What I would like to do is to take all of this and put it to our left. Because I like to use the edge of the road as my curve. So this one needs to be offset to around 0.5 meter to the outside. I would love if it would be as simple as get a set position and just say x-axis. But as you can see, it's just the x-axis. So the best way would be to get the same as offset extrude. 0.4 and delete this part. But how to do this in geometry nodes? Well, we could try to use an extrude. edges. As you can see, that's not the way we would like it. We could build a system for it, or if you know it's the same distance all along, you could just take the profile and pull this one to the left, the x-axis 0.4 minus 0.4, and the same with our two poles. Make sure you are in edit mode with this, minus 0.4, and we would have achieved it. If it is important to you and you would like to have this as a control point, and we should do this in geometry nodes, just write it in the comments or in the Discord, and we're going to do this. I currently do not see the point of doing it, at least for the guardrail, maybe on a later project, but not for sure. And yes, now we need to get to the endpoints. So first of all, we do have a pole at the end. There should be no pole, so let's delete this. So let's make a frame. Frame is not Control F. Control J, obviously, for frame. Let's call this poles. Hello. Where's the name? Poles? No. Here. Poles. Yes. Make this bigger. And this is Control G. No, G was group. Do not ungroup. Ungroup. Frame Control J, obviously. I forgot again. Let's call this guardrail profile. Make it bigger so you can see it. What we want to do, we want to delete the first and the last one. So it's quite simple. We type delete, we can delete geometry. We put this behind our instances. Let's put this into the poles. And we want to delete an instance. Now we want to select it. In that case, we want to delete the first and the last one. Which means first and last is first does not give us anything and does give us something. Endpoint selection. Now let's see, what does this do? Sadly, nothing. That is quite sad. So why not put this in front? So delete geometry, and we want to delete a point. Now get the endpoint selection again, and let's move this, these to the right. Aha, does not work here either. So let's disconnect these two. And let's put this before curve. So in here and get this one right there. Change this to 1 and 1, and it does work. You really want to know why? I have no freaking idea. I just know that it works in this order. And that's why I show you. Not everything makes total sense. Yeah, but it does. Because in theory, here I convert it to a point, and then I can delete the point. But I delete the points before it is a point. It's just magic. But it does work, so that's quite good. And now we just need to create our endpoints. So for that, I usually take the profile, convert it back to a mesh. Sorry. And let's just extrude this 0.5 meter. Then again, 0.5 meter to the top. And 0.6, so it's in the ground. Pivot point to medium point. Oops, and rotate this 90 degrees. I will just bevel this one. So I have a curve. And voila. Now obviously this does not quite fit in here. But let's take one step at a time. Okay, so we can use the endpoint selection here. Actually, put this one on top. And let's start. We can get this. Let's call this endpoint 1. New collection, endpoints. And let's pull this collection in here. So basically we are doing the same thing as before. Make this bigger. We want instances on points. And as an instance, we have our collection here. Pick instances, and the instance type will be selected in our menu, which means we can rename this to endpoint style or type. Let's make it type. And then if we get the curve as before, let's make the endpoint type an integer. Join this together. They are sorry. They are just instanced at each point as before. So we just need to apply the things that we did before, which is A with curve to points, align the rotation. So let's do this first. Curve to points. Then align rotation to vector. Get the rotation. And we have our rotation in here. Now we can, let's get the endpoint here. And rotate this around the 3D cursor. 90 degrees. And then let's pull this up. It fits. Make this bigger. Why are there two? I'm confused as hell. That's because there's an instance. Just don't know which one it is. Okay, so is this correct? Oh, it needs to be higher. Just like this. Perfect. So this one fits right here. And at the other side, it's flipped. But it's no problem. Firstly, we're going to delete all in the middle. So this endpoint fits, and then we do the next one. So the rotation part is done. Now we can, with the endpoint selection, just select one side. So hide this one. If we use the start, it's probably this side. Whoops. Maybe it's not. Is it this hack again? Points to curve. Exactly. We need the points to curve, then the points into the curve. It's funny. I have no idea why this one should be allowed. And in the end, we can one thing after the other, and this one is flipped around, so probably the end one. We need to flip this around. So means we can duplicate this, pull this down, get this one, put it in here, and use the endpoint. Connect it. And now we need to flip this. To flip it, we simply get a transform geometry right here. Transform geometry. And along the y-axis, -1. My mind is correct. Yes. And now one of these two should be facing the wrong side. It does not. I'm completely confused right now. On the last 4 times I did the same thing. Oops, sorry. Probably because of this. Okay. If, for example, your endpoint is flipped, I did have this happen nearly every time I did this. You simply add a flip faces to the side that is flipped. In that case, apparently I don't need it. And then again, connect this to the endpoints. Perfect. Now we do have endpoints that are following this part. Aha, we can, for example, see an issue right there. Right around here. Okay, it's going down. But if it gets too sharp, we have a little bit of an issue right there. And it also got down again. But we do not have enough geometry right there. If you want the last point to be this point, which does not extend above what you have, you can simply delete these points right before. So delete geometry, point selection, endpoint selection, which means it did not change anything right there. Guardrail profile. Let's go with delete geometry behind it. Endpoint selection. Instances. I'm confused. Today it works way better than the last times where I needed all of this. Otherwise, it did not work. Let's have a look. I don't know if Blender changed anything in the versions. Maybe they fixed a few little bugs. Now we just need to merge this together. So if we add a simple merge by distance, you can see nothing happens. And that is because even if you make this bigger, these are not connecting. That's because this is an instance and this is a mesh. So we need to realize our instances before, and it works. Now for the endpoint, if we add a second one, let's just delete all of them. Let's take this point, add our cursor in here, and select spin onto top view. Wait, no, I want it right there. That was the issue. If I spin it now, also make it a little bit bigger. Add less vertices. (180°). Scale it. And then something like this. We have a second endpoint. And if we change it, we can change between these two endpoints. The great part about this, and what you just learned, you can use this also for other parts, just as before. So here I have a pedestrian walkway. If I go in here, the first thing I would need to do is delete the last point, which means I do need a delete geometry point endpoint selection. Doesn't it work in here? Obviously not. Where do I need to put this? The right one is probably the wrong one. Delete geometry. Just the wrong input. and an endpoint selection, which means, yes, the last one is missing. Sorry. And then I would just need to build my endpoint so I can connect it. So just simply make a new collection, or not even a collection. I take this one, duplicate it, all this endpoint. I will rotate this around the pivot point at the 3D cursor. Okay. Maybe it's a curve. Convert it to mesh. Probably meter. 0. Up. And bevel this. This one or this one. Something like this. Just as an example. Go back right here. In here. And we do the same thing as before. We need an instances on points. We need our endpoint or our collection. In that case, I just used this one because I won't be needing the second one. Won't be needing, sorry. As geometry is an instance. Tick instance, relative. Now we need a point, but with the endpoint. Make a join geometry in here. Realize instances. And a merge by distance. So that they are merged. If I just put the resample curve in here. And add the endpoint selection. As you can see, we do have nothing again, just as we had before. That's why we need our curve to points. Curve points. Let's convert this first. Then points to curve. I cannot type points to curve. Put this in here. And if I am correct, we should at least get the points. Yeah, thank you. All right, on the last point, we do want this one. So we yeah. Just don't be stupid as me. What? Oh. Oh God. Now we need to get the rotation again. Euler to rotation, align, rotation to vector, get the rotation, put it in, good, and we want this curve right here. Only thing that is off is the scale. Could be easily changed. Tool space. Space. Okay. For the provisorum, let's just this one. Close enough. But there we have it. Use the same one up on top. Wait. Maybe I missed something. Because if we put a 1, 1, we should have also the also have this in here, right? What do you want for me? We take the same thing, put it in here, and we transform the geometry. -1. Add it in here. And it did not work. Why 3? It is not a third point. I am confused. It should be the first point, even if we deleted one. Base orientation. Wonderful that we have curbstone the wrong direction. Let's fix it. It is correct, but what? Segment switch direction. Wonderful. Now, where's our merge by distance? Is not. Bro, what? Huh. Let's move this side. How about this side? Face orientation. Now it finally happened. Thank you. If this happens, flip faces of the inside, which you usually have to do. And this works as well. Now we're going to do one more thing. And it's also in here with our road gen tool. First of all, I will delete this. I will duplicate this. Okay. Currently, our road tool does not have a material. So I will add a material as fault in here, and then we need to unwrap this. There's science behind this, but I will give you this link. In the end, it's just math which calculates the faces from each point, from the x to the y-axis. In that case, it's designed for a curve, but you just click on download, click on it, save it in your asset folder, mark it as an asset, and you can use it. I have it right in here, curve to mesh UVs, and curve to mesh, which means we go in here, and the curve to mesh UVs does exactly this. Then we just need to add the material. That material, use asphalt, and then we need to store named attribute to d vector and base corner. Value will be the UV map, and the name is UV map, which is the default name for the UV map. To use this, I will take all of these three. Oops, did not want to go in here. Also for the 2-lane. Oh no, it's all in one. Good, because it uses the same thing. Perfect. What does this do? If we go to the shade editor, under asphalt, if we use tutorial, there is a road texture. Let's use a JPEG. It is unwrapped. In that case, not perfectly. But in theory, we can adjust this right here. Or afterwards, but we all have them unwrapped. Which saves a lot of trouble later on. And on Friday, we're going to texturing with texture painting as the side objects.